Hello, how are you? Good to see you guys today. Today is day 3 of our exam study challenge, 253 exam study challenge. I'm so happy today. I hope that you are finding these days valuable, that the study guide and the study materials have been valuable, and I want to welcome you back to day 3. So again, my name is Nikita Borden. I am a master's level educational diagnostician with 12 to 13 years of experience from ranging from pre-K through 12th. I am passionate about this work of an educational diagnostician. It's the best work we'll ever do on this side of heaven. I believe all children with disabilities deserve equal and equitable opportunities to go be great, just like their typically developing peers. I believe that parents of children with disabilities deserve dignity and respect. And I try to communicate with that, try to communicate to them every time I interact with them. And I believe educational diagnosticians make the world go round. We get to do this work of advocating for children every day, doing what's right for kids. So that is what I believe. Again, my name is Nikita Borden. I am the founder of the Borden Institute. We are a high end professional development firm offering high value training opportunities for educational diagnosticians with 0 to 100 years of experience looking to hone their skills and execute at a high level. So that's what we do at the Borden Institute. We are live on Facebook, live on Instagram, live on YouTube. Don't forget to like, follow, share our pages so that you can be up to date on what we have going on and also receive study materials and other valuable content for your work and your study as an educational diagnostician. We serve diagnostician students all the way up to certified and practicing tenured educational diagnosticians. So today is day 3 of the 253 exam prep. Let's see who we have on today. All right. All right, friends, let's see who we have out there. Stick your name in the chat. Who do we have? Stick your name in the chat and stick your diagnostician program. What diagnostician program are you currently working with? April from Lamar University. Awesome. Who else do we have on today? Shalise, I'm a graduate, Lamar University. Whoop, whoop. I just finished there too. I just finished the admin program literally a week ago. Shar from Lamar. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Who else do we have? Let's see. Shar from Lamar. Latera from Region 10. I get a lot of people down from Region 10, Latera. That's awesome. I'm glad you're on. Thank you for being on. Let's see who else we have today. Ooh. Comments, that's where we are. Courtney from Lamar. Shara from Lamar. Shalise. Awesome. April. All of you guys are from Lamar. Well, thank you for being on today. I appreciate that. Today, I am going to do something a little bit different, and I need 2 brave volunteers. I need 2 brave volunteers. If you are willing to do something different for me today, something with me today. Oh, Christine Lamar just graduated. Whoop, whoop. Glad you're on, Christine. Glad you're here today. I need 2 volunteers who are willing to do a little experiment with me today. 2. Just type your name in the chat if you're willing to experiment with me today. Anybody? You could just put yes in the chat. Anybody? Latera. Yay, Shalise. Whoop whoop. And one more, volunteer, or I can voluntold. Anybody else want to be brave and step out there like Shalise? Anybody? Latera. I'm going to write your name down. I feel in my spirit that you're saying yes. Oh, Shara. Okay, Latera, you were saved. Shara is saying yes. Okay. Shalise and Shara, thank you. I'm going to do an experiment today. And this experiment is going to include me pulling you up on the screen with me just a hot second. It's okay. A hot second. We're going to ask you a quick question and poop, you'll be gone. But I'm going to try to bring you up on screen today, but it's much later on. Okay. So awesome. I'm excited. Thank you for experimenting with me. All right, so like we said, today is day 3 of the 253 exam study challenge. The 253 exam study challenge is the 28 days. We're studying. It's designed to keep you motivated, keep you engaged, and to get you into that study and really start to chew on the material and the exact material so you don't waste time with documents and reading that you don't need. And we want you to walk in feeling confident on day 1. So that's the goal of this exam study challenge for the 253. And of course, like I always say, I want to help you tackle the 253 exam and win. I want to alleviate your worry. I want to alleviate your anxiety. I want to do the heavy lifting of curating all this dense material and just giving you what you need, straight to it, direct. This is it, so that you can focus on passing the exam. Okay, so I want to check in with you. I want to know, what is your knowledge base about evaluations and interpretation? Meaning, if you were looking at a set of test scores, if you just had a set of test scores from WJ or from the WISC, how skilled are you at looking at that score report or looking at that profile saying this is likely dyslexia? This is likely not a learning disability. This is likely this. How proficient are you with doing that? Rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 3. You can stick it in the chat. 1 being not yet, not there. There is no way. All the numbers look the same to me. 2 is, I can kind of go in that direction, but I definitely need some support. And 3 is, I got it. I don't need help. I know what I'm doing. Where are we with that? April 2. Christine, good. That's where we are. You're in the right place. April 2. Christine thinking 1. Good. Shalise 2. Good. At a place to be supported. Good. Well, we're going to hit on that a little bit today. Latera 2. Excellent. Good. Let's see, Rosie, I struggle with dyslexia. It's so tricky, Rosie, but you know what? I gave you a document today. We're going to hit it, but I feel like once you sit with it in your personal study, Rosie, and kind of read through it, it'll get clearer and clearer and clearer. But really, what really helps you to get focused into it is when you're doing the assessment. It's really just picking up feet to the fire kind of things, throwing it to the wolves almost. The more you do the assessment, the more you work with the student, the more you write the assessment, you write the conclusions, the clearer the concept of it, the clearer the concept becomes. So it's going to come, Rosie. You'll get that. And then Shara, a 2. Excellent. So good. All right. Thank y'all for sharing that. So when I say I believe parents of children with learning disabilities deserve dignity and deserve respect, and I communicate that to them as often as possible. The competencies 2 and 3 that we're going to review today, that's where this comes from. That belief that they deserve respect, even in the way I communicate with them, that comes from competency 2 and 3. It doesn't matter how well we are able to do assessments, able to do evaluations. It doesn't matter how well or how beautifully we're able to write the entire FIE if we are lacking the skill to communicate it effectively to parents and to campuses. And a lot of parents, like for example, today, and a few times last week, I had a few parents come in. They were reserved, they were very guarded, and they kind of had a wall up when they came into their initial IEP meetings, because they had received the IEP notice saying that we're talking about the potential, that your child has a disability condition, and they were alarmed by that, even though they signed consent to do the testing. And it appeared that they had a clear understanding of what this process was, but it freaked them out when they got the IEP notice to come to the school to talk about the potential disability condition that your child has. So that's the kind of things, those incidents can get very hairy, in a way to avoid misunderstandings as much as possible, not only with parents, but with the campus too. The admin, the teachers, everybody has a vested interest in what the results of your evaluation will be, even other evaluators, and that counts too. So it's really important to be hyper focused on the evaluation, on the assessment, on a quality, a well-written FIE, but don't lose sight of being able to communicate it effectively as well. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. We're going to be focusing on evaluation, interpretation, and communicating the evaluation information. So, competency 2. All right, here's how competency 2 reads: applied knowledge of the functions and principles of assessment. Assessments, and again, I'm going to draw your eyes back to what do you need to be able to know? What do you need to know and apply to scenarios that you will see on the exam? You need to know the function and the principles of assessment. You need to know assessment used to make the types of assessment used to make educational and instructional decisions. What are the procedures? What are the considerations to make whenever you're selecting assessments, when you're administering formal and informal assessments to students? Competency 2 is all things assessment. Do you know the principles of assessments, the type of assessments? Do you know how to select what assessment do you know how to select what assessment to give depending on the referral question, depending on the student? It's really getting to the nitty-gritty of of assessment. Of assessment. I don't know why I can't talk today. So, descriptive statement A: demonstrate knowledge of terminology and statistical concepts used in assessment and evaluation, data distributions, field charts, statistical terms, things like that. I sent you a video and a study guide for you to sit with the video. You have the study guide that goes with the video. This is in the email that I sent today, just to sit with it and process the information. This is mainly about knowing the terminology. Knowing the terminology and the idea of the concept. Okay, so I sent you a video and a study guide to aid you in that. Descriptive statement B: demonstrate knowledge of standards for test norming, reliability, and validity. Procedures used in administering and scoring assessment instruments, and sources of measurement of error and potential bias. So again, more terminology, more statistical concepts also covered in the video and a study guide to wet your whistle and get you focused in the right direction. I guarantee you have tons of coursework that goes over all this terminology, reliability, validity. So you definitely want to lean back and pull out some of that old coursework to wrap your mind around the concepts and the terminology. We do use it in the field every day, and you will need it to have an understanding of the concepts on your exam. Okay. And then descriptive statement C, applied knowledge and the uses and limitations of various types of assessment instruments. All right. What are the functions? What are the pros and the cons? The uses, the limitations, the pros and the cons. What are the pros and cons of using a norm referenced assessment like the WJ? Norm reference. What is the pro? What are the cons? One pro of the WJ is that it has all 7 G's covered. So I can pick up that one test kit, hit all 7 G's, boom, one stop shop. The limitations of the WJ is that it is language heavy. What that means is if a student has weak language skills, that WJ is going to rate them lower than what they may be. So it's language loaded. It requires a higher understanding of language. And if a student doesn't have that, that's a limitation of the WJ. That wouldn't be the best fit for them. So same with criterion reference. What are the uses? What are the limitations? Same thing with doing an observation. An observation is an informal assessment. What are the pros and the cons? We're doing an observation, right? So these are all concepts they want you to kind of just sit with, think through what the pros and cons of them are. I put here that you'll do some self-guided study on the terminology. Again, this is more terminology, just kind of chewing on concepts. So I put that for you there as well. For descriptive statement descriptive statement D, we're still in competency 2. Describe the ability to choose relevant and appropriate assessments based on technical quality of the instruments. How to choose relevant and appropriate assessment based on the referral concern or the referral question. What are you looking for? And how does that inform what assessment you will use? What test battery are you going to use? Or do you just always go to the WJ because that's what you know, no matter what the referral question is? How do you make those determinations? Choose a relevant and appropriate assessment based on the data that you need. What assessment battery will give you the information that you need? Right? Choose assessment based on the student's individual characteristics, like what language do they speak? How old are they? Are they a student that lives in low SES? How do all of these characteristics inform what assessment battery you will use? When it says technical quality, an example of that would be the language demand, like we talked about. The referral question or the referral concern is, why is a student being referred for special education? What is the suspected disability? If the suspected condition is intellectual disability, how will that inform what test battery you choose to use? If it is a non-categorical for intellectual disability, what assessment battery are you going to use? That's what this descriptive statement D is saying, that you have the ability to choose which assessment to administer based on these various characteristics. It's a big deal. Okay. All right. So in the descriptive statements E through I put that you would read through those descriptive statements on your own, sit with them, look at what knowledge it wants you to be able to apply, and look at what skills it wants an entry-level diagnostician to have. So sit with the competency statements. I really want you to get used to reading the competency statements and unpacking it the way I've been demonstrating for you the last 2 days, so that you can start to really chew on and get to the nitty-gritty of what you need to know. Okay, so that's an important skill set for you to build. So most of competency 2, I gave you materials to do some self-guided study to help direct your study. I gave you a video, a couple of articles, study guide, things like that. Okay, so on to competency 3. Competency 3 says apply skills for interpreting, reporting, and here's the word, communicating the results of the FIE. Very simple, competency 3. It's very simple, one sentence, and will be the hardest thing that you will probably do as an educational diagnostician. It is a hard skill set to do psychoeducational assessment, interpret the scores, and determine if there's a disability criteria that has been met. And then to wrap all of that into layman's terms, so people outside of you, non-evaluators like the parents, the principals, the teachers, to be able to wrap that up in terms so that they can understand why you D&Q'd the child, understand why you identified them as ID, dyslexia, like why did you do it? And do you have the words to say and explain to them clearly why you made that decision? That is competency 3. And that's kind of where we're going to hang our hat today. Descriptive statement E, apply knowledge of strategies on how to effectively communicate to parents, teachers, all these people that we named. All right. And that is day 3. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. Okay. Let's see. So what I sent you in the email, and I put a little note in the email that this cute little cognitive chart diagram that I sent to you is not my original work. It was floating around online a couple of years ago, actually, maybe about 4 years ago. And I just kind of typed in it just a little bit, just a tiny bit. What you see in blue is what I typed. But this is kind of what I give to people when they're learning what the cognitive areas are, but more importantly, how to explain the cognitive areas. So we're going to go through each one of these cognitive areas. We're going to talk them out, we're going to talk them through. We're going to talk about which one of these areas connect to certain areas of academics, so that you can begin to draw some connection between the cognitive areas and between the areas of academics, because that's really an important skill to be able to do. Okay, so let me go back. Here we are. Okay. So the first G is what we call crystallized intelligence. You'll also hear it called comprehension knowledge. And it's important to know that there are 7 Gs that we as diagnosticians use to determine how a child learns, and if these 7 areas of thinking, that's how I use that word. Sometimes people don't always wrap their mind around the word cognition or cognitive. So I say 7 areas of thinking that either help us to learn math, reading, and writing, or could possibly make it difficult for us to learn math, reading, and writing. It is important to note that all Gs are not created equal. All Gs are not created equal. Some Gs are more significant to learning than others. Some Gs are more significant, more important to learning math, reading, and writing than others. So they're not all one and the same. They are literally weighted. Okay. So we're going to go in order, okay, so to speak, of significance. So this comprehension knowledge, GC, right here, GC, we say GC for short, comprehension knowledge, is a broad ability that measures language development. It measures the child's ability to process language. Broad abilities are made up of smaller abilities. Think of an orange. The broad ability, GC, is an orange. If I take an ability, a piece of GC out, if I take out one orange slice, I would be taking out general information. This is one narrow ability that makes up the comprehension knowledge, cognitive ability. Okay, so I have general information as a slice. Then I have verbal language, that is a slice. Okay, whenever we're looking at broad G's, you also have to be aware of narrow abilities. The narrow abilities are abilities that make up the broad, and they give us a lot of information. It gives us deeper understanding of why a student is or is not able to do math, reading, and writing. So general information and verbal knowledge are the primary G's. Now, broad G's, they may have many narrow abilities embedded in them, but there's only particular few that we use in each broad when in terms of learning. Okay, so we have comprehension knowledge is the broad G. We have the narrow abilities of general information and verbal comprehension. This ability is a student's ability to use higher order vocabulary, to use various word meanings. It's like having a mental lexicon or a mental dictionary. Their ability to process language, the general information, narrow ability specifically, is measuring, if you will, is measuring, that's where we kind of get into validity and reliability, all of the exposure, all of the experiences we have had since birth. All right, general information, and then your verbal comprehension, of course, like we're saying, your ability to understand word meaning, language, terminology. Okay, so this is kind of abstract and kind of dense when you're saying that to parents. The way that I communicate about these thinking abilities is to wrap it into language, into illustrations, into stories, into pictures that people can understand. One way that I describe the way I describe comprehension knowledge is I will give an illustration. So I will say, Mom, this was an area of weakness for your student. And what this could look like is if two third graders were at a beach that weekend and they came back to school on a Monday, and I asked one of them, well, how was your time at the beach? And their answer was, it was humid and we perspired the whole time. The tide was high, so it was not safe to swim. The other third grader could say something like, I swam, we played, we ate hot dogs. The student's ability to use higher order vocabulary, to use diverse word meanings and word terminologies to describe the world around them. That's one of the simple illustrations that I give parents so they can understand there's a difference between the way they are able to use language to explain and understand the world around them. Okay. So that ability is significant to these areas of academics that you see on this side. Okay, reading comprehension. These are your kids who are hyperlexic, meaning they can read beautifully. They don't miss a word. They got it down. They may be able to read phonetically, sound phonetically, but when you ask them, okay, so tell me, what did the cat do? What did the cat do? And they're staring at you like, they don't have an answer for that. Because they're not processing what they're reading. They're not understanding what they're reading. That language is getting away from them. Okay. So reading comprehension. Do you understand what you read? Are you able to retell it? And does language get in the way of you being able to do that? Other areas that we see, of course, is written expression. And sometimes, not sometimes, but a lot of the times, this is a measure of general information. If a kid is sitting in science and you guys were talking about water cycle and they're not grasping the higher order vocabulary like precipitation, states of matter or whatever, and you ask them to write a paragraph on the water cycle, they're going to be grasping at straws, right? Because that language ability is weak. So they have the thought in their mind, but it is difficult for them to wrap that and clothe it into words, get those words onto paper. God forbid you want them to spell it right, and edit it. So all of those are abilities that may be difficult if there's a low GC. Okay, and these are the other areas that you see here as well. Okay, we have fluid reasoning. So I call GC the granddaddy of all things GC because it is the most significant to academic learning. The next thing would be grandma, fluid reasoning. Fluid reasoning is a student's ability to problem solve, to reason, to think critically. It is inductive, and deductive reasoning. We see that here. Inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning, depending on what test kit you give. And now this is why it's important for you to know what test batteries measure. The WJGF composite is not the same as perhaps the KABC GF composite. The narrow abilities being measured in these two different assessments are not the same. You would have to be skilled enough and proficient enough in your role to know which narrow abilities in this G do you need, depending on what the referral question is for the student. It's a big deal. Okay. So you have inductive reasoning, and then this general sequential reasoning is their ability to reason with mathematical thinking specifically. Are they able to reason and think mathematically and problem solve inductively, deductively with mathematical concepts? Okay. So if you are saying that a child is learning disabled in an area of math problem solving, and I look at your score report and you gave a WJ perhaps that has inductive narrow ability and deductive narrow ability, but you did not necessarily measure this general sequential reasoning, how do you know that? I don't know. How do you know that? So when you have to be selective about what test battery you're choosing to use, it matters. So you have to know what you need to measure. Okay. So the ability so the problem solving, of course, it has the definition here. It's the ability to problem solve. And here's the areas of achievement that it may be linked to: reading comprehension, math problem solving. One way I describe this is I will say, Mom or Dad, what this could look like is if Johnny is sitting in his reading class and his teacher is reading the story of the big bad wolf and the three little pigs. And the teacher poses the question, based on what we just read, what kind of friends would the big bad wolf have? Well, Johnny can't just turn to page 2, paragraph 3, line 4, and find that answer in black and white. He has to reason, right? And use context clues and draw conclusions. That is a measure of GF. Okay, so that's what the purpose of this chart is for you to go through and get proficient. It's just a little snapshot that starts to kind of wet your whistle, get you thinking about G's, and kind of experimenting with explaining them and understanding them, and then looking at what test kits measure what part of the G and the narrow abilities and that whole thing. Okay, so that is in your email, and that is how you will want to study about those areas. Okay. All right, let's see what we have next. So I have some questions for you. And here's where I'm going to try to pull up a guest. Shalise, I'm going to try to pull you up first. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this little link right here in the chat. And if you click this link, Shalise, you should be able to copy it, click it, and you should be able to get on. It's going to ask you to share your mic, share your camera, all that kind of good stuff. So we will see if that works. If it won't work for you for some reason, let me know. Okay, and so while you do that, Shalise, we'll give you a sec to see if you can get on. Rosie has a question. Is this recorded? I want to go back and listen to your explanation of GC and VCI. Yes, Rosie, all of these are recorded. They're recorded on the social media pages. It looks like you're watching through Facebook. So on my Facebook page, all of it is recorded. Okay, so you'll be able to find it there. That's a great question. While we're waiting to see if Shalise can connect, are there any other questions from the group? And what do you know about G's? I got the video link twice, but not the study guide. Oh, really? Okay, Shar, no worries. I'll resend that out. Maybe I copied the video twice. I apologize for that. Not a problem. Let me send myself a note. Resend the video. Uh-oh. Shalise! Let me see if I can get this to work.
Okay.
Hi, Shalise. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
Hey, I'm so good. I'm glad you were able to get on here with me. All right, Shalise. So talk to me about cognition. How do you feel about the G's? And when I say how do you feel, I mean your level of proficiency. What are you thinking about that? How do you feel? Where are you with understanding the G's and being able to explain them?
Okay, sorry, it was like it's echoing, so I just want to make sure you hear me. I feel somewhat confident in breaking it down. I think I just get kind of overwhelmed with the various descriptions. Like you broke it down, or the example you used, you really broke it down. But I want to make sure like that I choose the correct one when testing the students.
Really good. That's really good. And one thing I recommend for you to build the vocabulary to explain it, but explain it in layman's terms, not just explaining it in our evaluator terms, is to write it out first. I would always do that. Before I spoke, I would have pages of how I was going to explain what this meant and what it looked like when it manifested for that kid. I would use real literal information from their evaluation data about why they can't hear the sounds in the words. It's because their GA is so poor. But I would read it in the manual first, and then write it. So that's how I grew in that. So you may find that beneficial. So good. All right, Shalise, I have a question for you. Okay, it's a true or false question. Are you ready for this? All right, true or false? Cognitive assessments are required for an SLD assessment. True or false?
I wanna say true.
Okay, now what region of Texas are you in?
I'm in Hutto, so it's, like, North Central, I
North.
guess, like, Austin area.
Yes, Austin. Okay, and I'm down here in Region 4. What about our friends in the chat? How are you answering this question? True or false? Cognitive assessments are required for I'm sorry, yeah, cognitive assessments are required for SLD assessment. What are you all thinking? Yes, or I'm sorry, true or false? Rosie saying true. Let's see what else we have. True. April saying false. Courtney saying true. Latara saying true. Rosie's true. Okay. The correct answer is false. Really, really good. Yeah, the correct answer is false. In the state of Texas, we can identify specific learning disability in two ways. You can do RTI model, exactly, Shara, depending on the method that's used. Some of us, like you and me, Shalise, in our respective areas, we tend to be hardcore pattern of strengths and weaknesses. You may have heard that terminology. And we use hardcore cognitive assessments in determining if SLD is present. Other states around, I'm sorry, other districts, other regions across Texas, like April said, may use CSEP. They don't have to use a cognitive assessment. It's an RTI model. They're just using achievement data to determine if there's been any progress in light of having received interventions for an extended period of time. So really, really good. Y'all have this. One more true or false question. All right, Shalise. Is a cognitive assessment required for an intellectual disability assessment? Do we have to do a COG if we're testing for ID?
Yeah, yes, you do. It is true because, if you get information from the parents, it's not always going to be exact. It's gonna be kind of biased, so you do need to do a cognitive assessment because there's different ones that will show those basic life skills and the things that we need to know.
Excellent. You got it. You got it. Thank you so much, Shalise, for coming up with me. I really appreciate you letting me experiment, and all of
Sure.
our friends in the chat got that answer right too. Awesome. Thank you,
Thank you.
Shalise. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good one. Okay, that was fun, y'all. Thank you. I love this little functionality thing. So I'm learning. So thank you. All right. Oh, it's 8:13. So we're going to hit this next part quick. I try to let you go in exactly 30 minutes, and I have not seemed to manage to be able to do that. But next, I want to talk about score interpretation. Score interpretation. I'm going to show you a set of scores. I'm going to give you a second to look at these sets of scores. And I want to know if you're able to tell me what the weaknesses are in this profile. Okay. Right here. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Take a look at these scores. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes. These are the cognitive scores. Cognitive up here. These are the achievement scores. So I'm going to give you a second to look at these, and then I will scroll up. If you want to jot down a few things, you can. And just for those who may not know, over here, these are the names of the subtest. Over here, this SS is standard score. These are the standard scores. Okay, so that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the names of the subtest, or these are composites here. and you're looking at the standard scores. So we'll take a minute and then I'll scroll up. Okay, I'm going to scroll up a little bit. Achievement scores here. I'm going to scroll up some more. And I want to show you the adaptive behavior. So this is adaptive behavior. We have skill area. These are the areas that we're looking at here. Here's the parent. These are the parent scores. Here's the teachers. Here's the teacher scores. I'll give you a second to look at that. You can jot down a few notes. This was also included in your email, so you do have it in your email. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. You've had a moment to take a look at the student's profile. When you're looking at scores, you're looking at the student's profile. So Shara, I'm going to bring you up and we're just going to chit chat about the student's profile, okay? So let me go back to the link. I'm going to put the link for you, Shara. You can click that and we'll chit chat. Just waiting for Shara. And while Shara is coming up, oh, there we are. Y'all have this going on today. Y'all are amazing. Hey, Shara, how's it going?
Good.
You look just fine for 8 o'clock on a Wednesday night. You look completely fine. No worries. Thank you for being on, Shara. I really appreciate it. I just want to talk about the profile that we saw. I just want to get your thoughts, okay? So looking at the profile of the student, what conclusion would you make based on the scores that you saw? If you just had to kind of talk through it and you're just kind of looking at it just as the evaluator.
Sorry, I have an echo. I'm trying to figure out which one of these I need to.
I don't know. Let's see.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Good deal.
So you said what was the
Right. What conclusion are you drawing looking at this student's profile what kind of conclusions would you draw? Is there an eligibility condition you have in mind? Or even if you're not thinking in terms of eligibility just yet, what are some strengths and weaknesses you see looking at that profile?
Well, I noticed that the scores for story recall and letter pattern matching under the cognitive scores were very low.
Excellent.
And on the achievement, it looks like the performance is higher. The word attack is also in the low range as well.
Excellent.
So, as far as strengths, I guess I would say would be the general reading. I guess that's not the basic reading, but the reading cluster, the first
Right.
one,
Mm-hmm.
and also passage comprehension, which is really interesting.
That it was a 90, that it was that
Yeah.
high. Yeah, that it was so skewed and high. Good, Shara. So what this is telling me is that you definitely are understanding how to read standard scores, which is really important. We know that anything 85 and over is an area that's is an average area. Anything under 85, we're going to really pay attention to. Anything under 70, we're going to really pay attention to. What is the criteria for an intellectual disability?
Well, borderline, I know it's going to be that 70 to 79. Mile is, what is that? Anything, it's, well, if it has to be, I would say above, well, 70 or above to be, to meet the, not 70 above, less than 70, sorry.
You got it.
70
That's
for the IQ score.
less than 70.
Um,
Really good.
and
Okay.
that would be like that, I guess that first range is like 55 to 69 maybe for
Something like
mile.
it's like 59 to 70 or something like that. Really, really good. So when you look at a profile like this, in your mind, what criteria are you trending toward? Just kind of in your mind. And friends in the chat, you can start to answer this too. What eligibility criteria are we thinking about our mind maybe going in that direction and why?
Mm. I know as well, for the adaptive skills, I also noticed that the functional academics, that was a too low in the self-direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be because you do have the two areas that you have to meet for intellectual disability, for two different areas for adaptive, along with the cognitive. So I think I would trend towards that.
Be thinking in terms of ID. Really, really good. That is so great. The reason that we would be considering ID, the main reason we would be looking at ID is because his overall IQ is a 51. That is extremely low. That's extremely low. Now, what's interesting here, and like you said, is that when we look at all these areas of cognition, all of these areas of cognition up here are very, very low. And that 47 and then that less than 40 are really low. Okay. And then when we look at these areas of achievement, we see 80, 64, 70, 68, all low. And then for some reason, we have this 90 in passage comprehension. Do you have any idea why that would possibly be a 90?
Honestly, no, I was kind of shocked to see that
Yeah, it looks.
in comparison to the other scores.
Yeah, if you look at the age of the student, the age of the student, uh, oh, it's not on here. So that was a trick question, y'all. I'm sorry. That was a trick question. This was an elementary child. first kindergarten or first grade. So the item density, meaning the number of items he need to get correct, were so few that if you got one or two right, ta-da, you're average. But had he had to do 8 or 10 or 15 questions, item density, we may have seen a lower score. Item density. So that's another thing we have to take into consideration whenever we are looking at why a score might be completely random. A random ability with a 51 IQ. It's not likely that there's consistency there. Okay. Really, really good. All right. So also when I'm looking at the score, so the first thing I'm looking at is his general IQ. We see it's a 51. That tells me as the evaluator, I'm definitely thinking towards ID to make sure, and I would make sure I went out and did adaptive behavior. Now, the law says adaptive behavior has to be consistent across 2 areas. So, but it has to be in 2 areas or more across environments. That's why we do a teacher and we do a parent. It has to be home and school, concurrent, home and school. So it's not that it just has to be too random, it has to be concurrent across environments. Okay. When we're looking at these scores, do you see any consistency here with the scores that we're looking at?
It looks like the teachers, well, the teachers definitely rated higher, but the scores that the teachers gave the lowest on were social, health and safety, and self-care, and those were not the ones that the parents or the parent scored the student the lowest as.
Exactly. So we're looking at scaled scores. So a scaled score of 7 is the same as a standard score of 85. Okay. So a 6 is an 80, a 5 is in the 70s, and so on and so on and so on. When we just glance with an eye, we see that the parent has rated him with 7s, like 85, and 8s, 90s. She gave us 180 here. Do you see that? He's in a shady 80s as far as the mom is concerned. These are scores of 75, 80, 85. But the teacher has rated him significantly higher. These are 115, a standard score of 115 or 120. So not just high, but almost advanced high in some of these areas. Okay. Now, one reason this might occur, this inconsistency, because usually the parents rate them super duper high and the teachers will rate them low. This is completely different. The parents rating them low and the parent, oh, I'm sorry, let me share my screen again so she can see. Oh, 1 second, I'm sorry. Here we are. There we are. Okay, here's what we're looking at with the adaptive behavior. The parent right here, these are the parent scores. A scaled score of 7 is 85, a standard score of 85. So an 80 would be a 90. A scaled score of 6 would be an 80. So she's rating him in the middle of the road here. Middle of the road. We see 80, 85s, 90s. Now over here, the teacher has rated him way higher, almost unbelievably high, way higher. Because if you look at some of these questions, like community use, she rated him a 16. That's superior. To be rated a 16, if we read questions, it would be like, is he making his own appointments at the doctor? Does he schedule his own appointments? And we know that this child that's in kindergarten or first grade is not able to do that. So these are the kinds of things that we have to take in consideration when we have outside evaluators, when we have people contributing to the report. And what some diagnosticians would do is to bring a teacher in and sit with them and to discuss these scores and kind of discuss the thinking and help them to think about the material accurately. And we would do the same for the parent. Okay, if we need it, some diagnosticians do that, or some choose to do the Vineland and do a structured interview and not just give them the protocol to sign on their, like to fill out and score on their own, but they will set an appointment, have them come in, and they will do an interview. And that way the person can contribute their information, but the evaluator can score it and it be a more valid score of what we're looking for. Okay. So what we have in this instance is we have an IQ measure that is under 70. That does meet criteria, but we do not have concurrent deficits down here. There are not deficits at the parent identified that also exist with what the teacher identified. This is inconsistent. And because these are inconsistent, potentially the student would not qualify for special education services. Okay. And yes, that is very true, Christine. That happens all the time. The teachers rate them too high, the parents rate them too low. That's why adaptive behavior is so, you have to be really careful with how you administer adaptive behavior measurements, because we need it to be as valid as possible. But these are not evaluative people. These are just people giving us information. So in this instance, it's possible that this student would not qualify, but I can tell you this would be one of the issues. This would be a sticky situation because the child has a 51 IQ. If that's accurate, this child is low. He's not navigating a building on his own in kindergarten, first grade. He's probably not writing any letters, not producing anything that's readable, marks on a page, doesn't know numbers, not recognizing his name in print, none of that hypothetically. So now we're sitting across from the campus who is the one that probably made the referral, and you're having to communicate with them why this student does not qualify. That is why you have to be skilled in communication as well. These are probably not going to be happy people. But before you communicate with them, you're going to be looking at this assessment data, making a determination of, this is inconsistent. What else do I need to go out and do? Okay. And one thing you could do is to sit with the teacher again and revisit that adaptive behavior scores and to see if we can get more valid or accurate scores. Awesome. Thank you, Shara, for coming on with me. I appreciate that so much. I'm going to release you back into the masses. Thank you for coming on with me. I appreciate it. Okay, that was fun. Awesome. Okay, so put your questions in the chat. Let's see what we're thinking. Could it be that the teacher rated too high and didn't rate correctly? Yes, that's usually the issue, Christine. You're going to get that a lot, parents and teachers. Can a kinder first grade student be identified as ID, or would that be non-categorical? Fantastic question. If they're under the age of 6, non-categorical is an option. If they're over the age of 6, it is no longer an option. As a matter of fact, if they're non-cat ID at 5 years and 10 months, 5 years, 11 months, you're hustling to do another assessment because they cannot turn 6 with a non-cat category, or else your district gets dinged for that. So you have to test them and have the ARD before the 6th birthday to determine either this is non-cat or it's not. Either it's ID or it's not. You have to make a definitive decision. So really good question. Really, really good, Rosie. What about informal assessments? Yes, this is where informal assessment can make or break. It's huge. is huge. You're going to go in and do assessments. Your counselor might go in and do assessment. You're going to try to get more information about his functioning. How is he functioning, especially when your adaptive behavior is inconclusive, but you feel like that 51 is a valid and true score? Why is it not consistent? Why are other people not seeing this behavior? 51, there's no way. With a 51 IQ? No, absolutely not. It'd be different if it was a 67, a 68 IQ. Okay. Because when we put you out in gen ed and you have a 67 IQ or a 65 IQ, it's very possible that you look very, you can appear typically functioning like the rest of your peers with a 70. But a 51, 85 IQ is average or higher, but you're 51? Come on. No, something's inconsistent. This is how you spend a lot of your time. And this is what competency 2 and competency 3 are all about. You being able to dig into these assessments, choose the right battery, know the background of the student, what observations and informal assessments to pull in. This is competency 2 and 3. And that's why I wanted you to do this, to bring context to these competencies so you can understand what your focus should be. Excellent, y'all. Y'all are doing a fantastic job. Really, really good. Okay. The last thing I gave you in the email was a technical manual that has to do with dyslexia. It's in your reading there. It's all things dyslexia as far as the state of Texas is concerned. There's information in there about SLD and all that kind of good stuff. That's there for you to reference, for you to read through, and to get even a clearer understanding of dyslexia and of assessments. Okay, so that is there for you. Want to remind us that these are bite-sized information, bite-sized pieces of information to get you studying on the right track. If you need a more thorough deep dive on our website, you're able to go and look at our exam prep course, which is more in-depth teaching just like this that adequately prepares you for the assessment. It is 4 pre-recorded sessions that has teaching just like this, where it takes you through all things competencies, every single descriptive statement. You get the workbook, you get the materials, you have it all, especially the constructive response. It's all about constructive response in the 4th assessment. And here's what some people who use or who took the some people, what they had to say when they did the assessment. Hi, I just wanted to let you know I am on day 3 of your study, meaning the exam prep course. I've learned so much. You are an excellent teacher, signed TH. That's one comment I got about a recent student. Hello, the videos have helped a lot. Things are much clearer now. That is from JF. So these are some comments from your peers who took the exam prep course, probably at about, I want to say 375 to 400 students have taken the exam prep course, and the passing rate is 97.3%. 97.3% on the exam prep. So it is very thorough and very accurate, and you can feel confident walking in on test day if you chose to proceed that way. Okay, it is 8:30, y'all. I've had you for 1 hour and 9 minutes. So this is day 3. We got into competency 3 a little bit. I think I might do a little bit more competency 3 tomorrow, and hit academics a little bit more. And then we'll meet one more time on Friday. Friday is going to be more of a question answer and more scenarios, or we're looking at data, just to get you into the habit of looking at some data, seeing what your decisions would be and where you would be going with the assessment. Okay, so I'm going to ask one last time, are there any questions? Any questions? Oh, thank you, Rosie. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I love having y'all. It's fun. Awesome. Thank you, Shalise. Thank you so much. Thoroughly enjoying having you guys on. All right, beautiful people. Happy studying. You are not going to bed. You are going to get up and you are going to go read, study, look at your material for an hour and a half to 2 hours. Okay? Happy studying. Latara. Okay, Latara, I'm going to send you everything. I'm not sure why you didn't get it, but I'm going to send it to you right now. I'm going to forward what I sent today and make sure you get it. Okay, Latara? Okay, friends. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I enjoyed it. Email me if you need anything at all, okay? Have a good evening. I'll see you back tomorrow. Same place, same time. Bye.